my heart. Diplomacy with my microwave. Third day curry still brave. TV expert speak so fast. I argue with my ceiling fan. What is all that? 3 clicks later, cosmic cat. My brain takes roads without a map. Wrong direction, maybe a trap. King of the room, crown is my headphones. Ruler of quiet, time zones. Not that cool, not mainstream. Galaxy starts in my small bedroom.
A quiet place to live, the day's air, mood, and small misalignment. A gentle reminder that your everyday life is not alone. Today was the day I had to change clothes. And something had been bothering me for a while. My legs felt rough in some spot, and I wanted to clean it off. I used many saline wipes, and it started bleeding, and it took a long time. I spent more than 30 minutes doing that. While doing that, I was also thinking about my podcast. The way I record had changed recently, and I had some new problems and confusing things again. And I'm still struggling because I stopped using Spring. I have a lot of mixed feelings. I also worry about the future. If I get hospitalized someday, people won't understand if I say I can't take a bus because of depression or OCD. And if something happens and I get a wound, I'm too stubborn to buy new glasses or deal with it. I wonder what I would do. I used to think maybe I could go into care facility, but that's not realistic. Recently, I've been researching on my phone about the future, only once or twice. But still, I looked up if there are facilities for OCD or for Hikikomori. I know they don't exist, but I still checked. I feel like I'll be fighting loneliness for the rest of my life. I can't imagine myself being alive in this world 10 years from now. If I'm gonna be lonely anyway, I wanna feel lonely first and then feel better later. But life doesn't work like that. Like I said, the fear of the future is always with me. I'm worried about what will happen if I get hospitalized for my illness. A lot happened today. My luck with clock is bad. The clock on the second floor probably needs new batteries. I was planning to change them soon, but I wanted to wait until the last moment. Now the time is off, so maybe the battery is dying. I can change it myself. My parents came to my room today. Since it was the day to change clothes, I had the heater on a bit. It was 30 minutes later than yesterday, so the room was warmer. I worried she might think, if the second floor is warm, then the first floor can be warm too. And I didn't want that. Bad timing again. She walked in with slippers, which is fine, but I feel like dust might fly. And like I've been talking about the podcast description, I tried many things. Tomorrow, I'm gonna avoid focusing on teeny details and missing the big picture. But because I'm a perfectionist, I end up stuffing too many keywords. Before, I would have broken down mentally, but now I don't. Maybe I've gotten older and softer. In the end, I forgot something important. It wasn't about the missing the big picture. I forgot the most important thing. The character limit. I didn't think about it. And like last time, it was hard to cut the sports description part. I spent the whole afternoon on that. I felt like, what was I doing? I rushed to finish it today because I didn't want to drag it out for days again. Even though maybe I should split the podcast into shows. I should split the podcast into 2 shows. I also doubt about English. I think people are clearly divided into those who can pronounce well and those who can't. I used to think fixing accent was just effort, but maybe having good ears matter. People who switch to standard Japanese quickly probably have good ears. I stopped Spanish and I could think of it as focusing on English instead. But it's hard if I am for perfection. I'll destroy me. It's destroy me. I have to text as long as it's understood. It's fine. Approach. Like I said before, mastering something and just learning, it's totally different. It can take 2-3 weeks or 1 million hours. Someone said that in a TED talk too. That's how different it is. So aiming for perfection halfway is wrong. I can't balance it emotionally. I don't think my pronunciation will improve much. It's like driving. You don't get better just by driving hundreds of thousands of kilometers. And like I said earlier, when I was cleaning my legs, I felt like dust was flying. I asked my mother, does dust fly like that? During lunch, I felt a strange smell, and it made me. I asked my mother, does dust fly like that? During lunch, I felt a strange smell, and it made me uncomfortable. I didn't need to clean it today. A dirt would come off in summer. Even through pants. I regret doing it. I thought maybe I should have wiped around my mouth better. I cleaned my nose well though. I was thinking about that. And tofu next. And tofu, I finally found a good way to eat it. But the smell of wrong tofu bothered me. Lately, the smell of soybeans bothered me. But timing was else. Oh, I saw video of Otani coming to Japan for WBC, and the crowd at the station, and the cable to connect the computer and printer arrived by courier, and we talked about why. My parents cringed a bit after I changed clothes. We talked about why it's too long, so it took so long. We talked a lot this afternoon. And like I said, I changed the podcast description. When I watch TV shows, I always think the director is telling them how to act, not exactly fake, but guided. I wish I could just enjoy it as entertainment. I used to think lamb meat was game meat. I checked online and found nothing like that. But I swear I heard people said lamb is game meat. It feels like I experienced a small disappearance. I thought, didn't I hear that before? I know I didn't mishear. Maybe lamb is farmed but feels like game meat because it's different from common meat. Some people call all fish cake kamaboko, but I don't know how correct that is. If ducks are farmed, it's still game meat. I hate confusing things. But the worst for me is when something shouldn't be confusing, when something is supposed to be simple. I want it to stay perfectly simple. A little complexity is fine, but too much too annoying. English has tortured me since school. People say native, but native just means it's their first language. But American and British English are totally different. I realized that the closer you get to American English, the farther you get from British English. If you try to be understood by one side, you become less understood by the other. I noticed these things, but no one writes about them or said them on YouTube. I just noticed them. So there's no real standard. Maybe there's something for the majority, but the goal is basically imaginary. Teachers might say things for business reason, but runners suffer because there's no real goal. If you get closer to one, you get further from another. It's not a tiny detail. And like I said before, if you speak exactly like a textbook, it sounds weird. But if you try to match native speakers, older people might end up using young slang and sound strange. English education is chaotic. Opinions are all over the place. It's not that I don't know what to believe. I can't believe anything. I'm recording from bed right now. It's lazy, but I can't break my routine. After meals, I sleep right away. During meals, I start imagining things, not because I'm bored, I'm focused, but I still imagine the things. Earlier, I imagined for a famous person with security guard, like an athlete or a celebrity. Otani had security. I wondered if he knows he has security, or if he requests it, or he just notices people around him. During meals, I remembered when I was pulled into a softball game because they needed prayer. It was my dad's team. A teacher from my elementary school was there. I imagined saying, "Did my dad ask you to come? Sorry about that, but I'm glad I got to see you again." I imagined that conversation. When I enjoy something, normally like watching a video, I later realize I remember nothing. But if I try to focus and remember, I feel like a robot scanning data. It doesn't work. During meals, it's even more complicated. The more I try to focus on the taste, the more my mind glitches. This is spice, no oily, but sweet. My brain glitches when the taste isn't what I expected. I panic, so I try to focus. But the more I focus, the more my mind leaves. If my parents does something during meals, or something is pressed differently, or there's a sound, I think everyone can judge if it's dangerous or not. It takes a tiny fraction of a second. But for me, during meal, I can only choose one. Focus on the sound or focus on the food. If I focus on the food, I have to judge danger later. But if I remember, I have to judge later. I can't focus on eating, so I can't judge like others. But I can't judge whether I judged correctly. Any change makes me anxious to erase that anxiety. I have to focus extremely hard. I've been telling myself this for more than 10 years, but it's still hard. Suddenly change the topic. But I was thinking about my life. No matter how close I was to fainting in a sauna, or how painful marathon training was, I could handle it. I could handle it because human relationships were much worse. Thinking about them makes me shiver. Science experiment, uh, everything. Science experiment crowd everything, even being with relative made me tense. Earlier, I felt sorry because I needed my parent to hand me sanitizing wipes while I cleaned my legs. It took time and I felt bad. I finally settled the podcast title and description for now, but now I'm struggling with the cover art. I might keep struggling art. Things are dangerous for me. Once I start, it's become a huge problem. I didn't have the sense for it. I saw Otani practicing battle. All the player chosen for WBC are elite. But his sense is on another level. If I were one of the other players, I feel bad. Next is Hikimeshi. Yesterday I had rencon. It's very sweet, and good texture. And croquette. It was good taste. Thank you for listening. Please follow this program. See you again.